So you think maybe they're trying to vicariously control their potential future enemies by encouraging them to commit energy suicide?
Yes, yes. If they, the fact that they're going green under COP's, definition, then we're going to go green too. And China loves that.
This is Climate Debrief, brought to you by the CO2 Coalition. I'm Angela Wheeler. We'll soon be talking with CO2 Coalition member Ronald Stein. Ron is a professional engineer, energy consultant, founder of PTS Advance, and internationally recognized advocate for energy literacy. He is the co-author of 3 acclaimed books, including the Pulitzer Prize-nominated Clean Energy Exploitations, helping citizens understand the environmental and humanity abuses that support clean energy. Thanks for lending your expertise, Ron. Now that COP30 is behind us, we'll discuss your commentary and if the conference was as you expected. Your article paints a vivid picture of COP30 in Brazil as a gathering of green delusionists. What specific aspects of the conference's agenda do you believe most starkly illustrate this disconnect between renewable idealism and the practical realities of global energy needs?
I think the one thing that was really lacking was energy wisdom. Let me repeat, energy wisdom, not energy denial, because it all begins with the knowledge that wind and solar can only generate electricity, but they cannot support the supply chain of the products and the fuels that allowed the world to populate from 1 to 8 billion in less than 200 years. We're now a materialistic society, and wind and solar cannot make any products.
So, Ron, my next question, you emphasize that electricity from wind and solar is a utility, not a raw material, and that fossil fuels provide the molecular foundation for over 6,000 products in modern society. Can you walk us through a couple of everyday examples where this difference becomes critically apparent and why renewables alone can't fill that gap?
My iPhone, electricity can charge my iPhone. A wind turbine cannot make my iPhone. It's all made from the products that come out of fossil fuels. It's interesting, Angela. We don't need crude oil. We need the products from crude oil. I was interviewed on a New York TV station, and they said, "Hey, Ron, we understand you're pro-oil." I said, "Time out. I'm not pro-oil. I'm pro the products we get from oil." That's the thing that's allowed us to come up with this kind of society. And I'm all for getting rid of oil if there's a substitute, but there is none. Not yet. We've had 200 years to replace it and been unable to do that. And wind and solar is only generating electricity. In fact, electricity came after oil because we got 6 ways to generate electricity. Got wind, solar, hydro, nuclear, coal, natural gas. All 6 ways to generate electricity require the same thing: wires, insulation, computers, which are all made from fossil fuels. So if you get rid of fossil fuels, Angela, you get rid of electricity. And when you take a look at what needs electricity, besides the iPhone, the X-ray machine, the defibrillators, your TVs, everything else, it's all made from fossil fuels. So everything that needs electricity is made with fossil fuels. So if you get rid of fossil fuels, the iPads go away. We're a product-driven society. I'll make the analysis. If you're looking at a restaurant that serves bad food, no one goes to the restaurant, well, the restaurant closes. Well, if you stop using the products, there's no reason to have crude oil. Crude oil is useless. It's black tar. And if you eliminate the products, then black tar goes away. No need for it. But what is Governor Newsom going to come out and say? We're going to close the hospitals. We're going to close the airports. We're going to close the shopping centers, reduce the product demands. That'll get rid of oil, but he's getting rid of oil without changing the supply demand needs for all the products.
And let's discuss electric vehicles. Your article argues that electric vehicles aren't truly zero emission because their manufacturing relies heavily on fossil fuel-derived materials. Can you explain this?
Yes, all the green solutions that COP30 people come up with, wind, solar, EVs, wind turbines, 100%, all the parts are made with oil. Solar panels, all the parts are made with oil. All the construction equipment is made from oil. The EV is 100% made with oil. The tires, the wires, the insulation, the leather. It's an electric vehicle. It runs on electricity, but it's made with oil. Mm-hmm. So all their solutions to get rid of oil are oil-based. Well, I guess the other thing to do is, when you go into a hospital or go into your office, go into an airport, try and identify something, one thing that a wind turbine can make. Then the construction equipment and, digging the holes for the foundation. And it's all oil-based. And that's the idealism, the delusion is that I'm 100% in favor of getting rid of oil. We need the products. And if Governor Newsom wants me to jump out of an airplane without a parachute, I want to have a conversation because the parachute's made out of oil.
And you highlight California's renewable push leading to blackouts, skyrocketing prices, and industrial exodus, all while importing fossil-based power. What lessons from this experiment should other regions like Europe or developing nations take to heart before doubling down on similar mandates?
I think we want to be wise about the use of energy. I guess the big confusion, they keep talking about wind and solar energy is going to replace fossil fuels, but they do different things because wind and solar only generates electricity. Crude oil is virtually never used to generate electricity. It's only used to make products and transportation fuels. And whatever solution they want to come up with, climate change is, I guess, a concern, but we've been able to live in all kinds of conditions. We've increased the average age of from 35 to over 80. We've achieved a lot because we have all these products. And if you eliminate those products, we're going back to the 1800s. They had no oil. They had no ships. They had no planes. They had no militaries other than horses. And we populated 8 billion in less than 200 years. And if we eliminate all the products, if you eliminate oil, we're going to be losing a couple billion people going backwards. Yeah. And that is unfortunate. It's only the wealthy countries that are really pursuing all this green movement because of the 8 billion on the earth, probably about 2 billion are maybe in the different wealthy countries, the United States, the UK, et cetera, et cetera. But there's 6 billion people that are barely living on less than $10 a day.
Yes, and that actually leads me to my next question. What you were just saying, with over 6 billion people living on less than $10 a day and billions without reliable electricity, how do you see green policies often subsidized in wealthy countries weakening divides rather than bridging them?
The separation between the wealthy and the less fortunate is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Because, we here, I'll make reference to California, we have gearing towards zero emissions and EVs and getting rid of gas cars and everything is going up. Price of electricity is going up. We're not drilling for oil, so we're importing oil. The refineries that make the fuel, they're leaving the state. It's a disaster. We have the 2 refineries that are leaving the state provide about 20% of the transportation fuels. In California is an interesting situation because we're an energy island. We're separated from the rest of the country by the Sierra Mountains. There's no pipelines over the Sierra Mountains. So all the fuel used in California is made in California by these refineries. And with these 2 refineries closing, they provide about 20% of the fuel to LAX, Los Angeles International Airport. And you say, whoa, where's that fuel going to come from? Well, the sad news is it's probably going to come from China because China has 8 new refineries coming online by 2030. In California, we got 9 international airports and 41 military airports. And the fuel supply will probably be provided by China. They'll be running our international airports and our military airports. We're becoming a national security risk for the entire country.
And your article lists staggering figures: 50,000 merchant ships, 20,000 commercial jets, and more, all dependent on fossil-derived fuels and materials. What would a realistic timeline look for transitioning even a fraction of this infrastructure without crippling global trade and supply chains?
Well, you've got to look at two things. One is, what does it take to build a ship or to build a plane? Again, they're all built with products made from fossil fuels. And once you have the plane and the ship and the militaries, then you got to provide the fuel. And, I'm not going to fly an electric jet across the United States. There's no charging stations along the way. So, no, the transportation would pretty much be eliminated.
Those are things that people don't think through, which comes back to critical thinking being, I shouldn't say non-existent, but pretty non-existent with these policies.
And well, Angela, my passion, I'm really passionate about having conversations. Like you say, I'm 100% in favor of getting rid of oil. Let's talk about the backup plan. If there's no backup plan, then we got to, continue the direction we're in and focus on efficiencies and conservation, recycling, because the oil, it's a natural resource of Earth. It's not going to be there forever. And there's estimates that maybe we have 100 years left. We're consuming like 100 million barrels a day for our materialistic needs. And how long are those reserves going to be there? Well, there's estimates, and they keep changing because of technology. With fracking, we're able to find more oil. But if that 100-year reserve is off, maybe it's 500 years, maybe it's 1,000 years of reserves. Angela, this 4 billion year old planet is going to be here with or without us. So at some point in time, we will run out.
Ron, you describe green transitions as a globalist suicide pact driven by ideology over economics, with subsidies distorting markets. What role do you think political incentives play in perpetrating these solutions? And how can we encourage more balanced policymaking?
Well, the subsidies, because only the wealthy countries are going green because they can subsidize it. The EV movement has been driven by subsidies, which only the wealthy countries can do. And it's just a illusion, but there's no conversations. I think the press is in the ideal position because, everybody wants to be interviewed by NBC and ABC and, SBN. And if they ask these types of questions to the candidates, then we'll find out what their solution is. But the concept of we're going to get rid of oil to reduce emissions, well, you can reduce emissions, but you're also reducing the population of the world because wind and solar can't support it.
Ron, energy literacy is a recurring theme in your work, and you urge starting conversations at the family dinner table. What's one myth about renewables that you encounter most often in public discourse? And how do you simplify explaining why it's misguided?
Well, the book that I wrote, Clean Energy Exploitations, which talks about all the exotic minerals and metals, the lithium and the cobalts, et cetera, they're all coming from developing countries. And the book explains that, we're mining for this stuff in China and Africa, and we're exploiting people who have yellow, brown, and black skin to mine for it. And there's 6-year-old kids are mining for the stuff by hand. And the environmental degradation is atrocious, but it's okay. It's over there. We're going green. People ask me if I own an EV. I said, no. And they ask me why. I says, for ethical and moral reasons. They said, well, what do you mean by that? And I say, I'm not willing to financially support China and Africa to continue exploiting their people and to continue the environmental degradation on their property so I can have a quote, green car. And ironically, our government is, with all these subsidies, the subsidies are providing financial incentives for China and Africa to continue exploiting your people with, yellow, brown, and black skin. and underage. They've no environmental laws, no labor laws, and I think it's unethical and immoral. But the delusion is we're going to net zero. Well, net zero is not going to support this world.
Ron, as an energy consultant with decades of experience, what emerging innovations do you see as genuinely promising complements to fossil fuels rather than replacements, and how should government support them?
I think letting engineering take care of it. Engineering and free enterprise, they'll come up with ways to make things more efficient. The automobile, the first automobile got, 10 miles a gallon, was smoking, and et cetera, et cetera. Now the automobiles are getting, 30, 40, 50 miles to a gallon. We can improve efficiencies. You see the same thing in airplanes, becoming more efficient, because we've got to really focus on improving efficiency, improving conservation, and focus on recycling if we can. Because as I mentioned, that natural resource of crude oil is going to run out at some point in time. And if we could extend it, then, the future generations, your kids and grandkids and et cetera, will be able to enjoy the same things we're enjoying. But we really got to focus on controlling what we can control. But by eliminating fossil fuels without a replacement, like I say, electricity can't run this country, can't run the world.
Well, now that COP30 has passed, did you see anything different this year? Was it just the same old, or was there anything new?
I think it's getting worse, because I think more people, the people that attend it, are buying into the fact that we're going to get rid of fossil fuels, but they have no replacement. Yes, they'll get net zero emissions, but they won't be able to fly to the COP 31. The amount of private jets were there, and like I said, everything you see at COP events, it's all petrochemical.
Yeah.
Wind and solar is not going to support people flying in.
What is China trying to gain from their green movement?
It's a diversion. It's all a diversion, because they're just feeding the animal what they want to hear. But take a look at their action. They're building more coal-fired power plants than anybody else in the world. I mean, they're going the other way. COP looks at wind turbines. COP looks at the solar panels. But COP's not looking at the fact they're building like one coal-fired power plant every day, and they're the biggest polluter in the world.
So you think maybe they're trying to vicariously control their potential future enemies by encouraging them to commit energy suicide?
Yes. If they, the fact that they're going green, under COP's, definition, then we're going to go green too. And China loves that. You're just buying into what they want to buy into.
Ron, in concluding our conversation, what is your message to our viewers and listeners feeling caught between green hype and energy realism?
Have conversations. We've got to have conversations. But making the statement, we're going to go to net zero, and we're just going to go wind and solar, let's have a conversation. How are we going to keep this world moving without products and fuels that's driving it? I go back to the crude oil. Crude oil is black tar. It's useless. No one uses it. But if you wind up building a multi-billion-dollar refinery, and you're going to heat it and beat it and crack and do all these crazy things to it, then you get the derivatives that make the products. And we want the products, but we don't want the refinery. So there's got to be conversations. And I like to say, with the upcoming elections for governors and the next presidential, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the press to ask these questions.
Well, sure.
Everybody wants to go to net zero. Well, how are we going to do it without the products that are keeping the hospitals open, the medications? All medications are fossil fuel based. When we're talking about people running for the governor of California or for the next presidency, that's going to be on national TV. And everybody in this country is going to see it. Everybody around the world is going to see it. That's where you got to ask the question. I mean, Newsom was a star of COP30 because they're going net zero. Ask him the type of questions we've been talking about here and see what his response is.
Mm-hmm.
and his response will be heard by the whole world.
Ron, it's been such a pleasure having you on Climate Debrief. We hope to have you again soon.
Thank you for watching. The Climate Debrief podcast is funded by listeners like you. If you enjoyed listening to this episode of Climate Debrief, please like, comment, and subscribe. We read all of your feedback. If you are interested in finding out more about the CO2 Coalition and its mission, visit our website at co2coalition.org. Our host and executive producer is Angela Wheeler. Production by Ethan Audie and Scott Wheeler. Technical production and editing by Joseph von Spakovsky.